Ready? Okay, let's do it. This is gonna be hard. I've been in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, and a lot of the topics would be around living a balanced life and how do you do it all? How are you this amazing wife, this amazing mom, this social woman, you working out, you have this amazing business and career and foundation, and how do you just manage it all? And the truth is, I didn't manage it. And a part of me now feels like I failed. And what that's led me to is a point that I'm broken. I just feel broken. And I think a lot of people are kind of wondering how I'm navigating it and what does healing look like? What is that going to require of me? There is a part of me that believes that sometimes God allows really tough things to happen because he's going to use it for his good and for his glory. And he's going to use testimonies to be shared and to bring others a lot of healing, a lot of places that they can relate to, maybe purpose even. There's moments that are hopeful and beautiful, even in the pain. And it's all part of the process.
Well, in a raw yet hopeful, grounded and powerful, candid memoir, South African speaker, businesswoman and philanthropist Rachel Kolisi invites readers to step beyond the screen and into the private moments that have shaped her. The book, Falling Forward, co-written with Zibu Sithole, Kolisi traces her journey through childhood, the realities of marriage and motherhood, the pressures of living life in the public eye, and the grounding forces of faith and philanthropy. She also explores how moments of falling can become catalysts for renewal, purpose, and forward momentum. Rachel Kolisi joins us in studio now to talk more about her book, Falling Forward, which also coincides with the release of a documentary, the one that you've just seen a glimpse from, by the same name. Rachel, welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, listen,
that's for me.
It's not easy to watch something like that. I mean, I got a lump in my throat and you got a tear in your eye that you had to quickly wipe away. This is hard. This is a hard moment for you, I have no doubt.
Yeah, I think we really all can just attest to the fact that at some point or another in life, we're all going to have to work through something that's really hard and really painful. And I just think mine happens to be very much in the public eye. Yeah. And it's very hard to kind of move into a next season that I'm trying to build and create when, you know, you kind of have everybody pinning you to one point in your life.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because somehow we become famous for something, and that something stays with us, and then suddenly that becomes our identity. And yet there's so much more to us. There is so much more. And after reading this book, I realized that there's so much more to Rachel than just being the wife of a rugby player. You see, I'm even calling him a soccer player. There you go. It's working. Yeah. Of a rugby player and the rugby captain. And this is, you know, something that's important. People have to realize there's so much more to an individual. And I think that's what you're hoping to achieve through this.
I definitely am. And I just think too many women, after navigating through something that's really challenging and really hard, they're almost expected to fade into the background. They're expected to just disappear, to keep quiet, just go back into your box and behave as you should. And I think because I am planning on continuing to live in the public eye, I don't think it's something I really have too much of a choice with anyway. You don't go in it and then out of it really quickly. But the fact of the matter is, of course, the majority of people know me because of who I was married to. That's a fact. That's not something anyone's shying away from. And there's a new season and a new conversation and new things that I want to bring to the table. And so looking forward.
Looking forward. I want to read that because there's a part in your book here and you speak to exactly that. And it says, my public identity was as his wife. And a quick Google search today would show an updated side along the lines of former wife of the Springbok captain. There are definitely benefits to being associated with someone famous. It's amplified my work and extended my reach, but it also ate away at my identity. Isn't that amazing?
It's
crazy.
amazing, and it, you know what? There's this really funny story of. I recently was at a kid's birthday party, my nephew's birthday party, and this little 9-year-old comes up to me. I'm assuming he was 9, and he says, "Hey," and I was like, "Excuse you, hey," and he's like, "Are you Kolisi's ex?" It's like, you've got to be joking. I've had to work so hard to kind of remove myself as this person's wife and try and create my own identity, my own brand. And now again, kind of just being viewed as, are you Kolisi's ex by 9-year-olds? It's comical, but it's something to work hard towards.
And it's real. I mean, I'll take myself for an example. You know, it's fine. I'm here on a breakfast program, and I have been doing it for quite some time. But fast forward a good couple of years, and people will sit and say, "Remember that chick with the dark hair? That one that used to be on the TV program? Isn't that you? You're that TV program person." No, my name's Leanne, and I actually have another story besides just being here for 3.5 hours a day. And that's what I loved reading this about you. And I didn't know any of this stuff about you, you know, and that's real, because I was also to blame at looking at you as this person supporting another person, and that's it. But I want to start at the beginning now, and that falling forward, because it seems that your whole life in a way has been about falling forward and stumbling, but not falling, picking yourself up and carrying on. Perhaps maybe let's start with the name, Falling Forward.
Yeah. You know, I've reflected on this so much, and of course been asked this question so many times: why falling forward? Why now? I think every single individual can agree that we all have to tap into our resilience at one point or another. We all have to move into seasons that we don't necessarily want to, and we're almost forced into because of other people's decisions sometimes and other people's actions. And the book is filled with stories of that, things that have happened to me and things that have required me to get up again and try again and move forward again. It doesn't make it easy, and it doesn't mean that it's something that gets easier over time. I think through therapy journeys and, you know, creating tools and language for what's happened, you're able to move forward. But that's the whole point of this. I'm not sitting here today with, you know, everything all together. I'm not nailing every single part of my life. I had a daughter in tears this morning on the phone. And so that's just the reality of life for every single person. I've just been privileged enough to have a platform, and I think that there's a responsibility that comes with that and an opportunity that comes with that to really help people see parts of their story and their lives through what I'm sharing. And that's really the whole point of this, is just to create a space that we can relate to, that we can talk through, that we can work through, and also just understand that life is going to knock you down, and you have the opportunity to get back up. And as long as you're moving forward, that is the most important thing at the end of the day, one step in front of the other.
And you know, the important part is as well, the point that you said is that you have a voice, because everybody has a story, but not everybody wants to listen to their story. They have a small circle to share their story with, and that's beautiful, and we carry on that way. But your story is public, and it can be shared, and there's a lot to learn from it. And I mean, there's just so much. I don't even know where to begin. And I'm only going to touch on things that you bring up in your book. I'm not going with what's online, what's being spoken about, and what's, you know, what people want to, because people want to find a story. They want to. They want the dirt. I don't want the dirt. I want the facts. And the thing is that we all have dirt in our lives. That's what it's about, and tough things that we need to get over. So the part that I want to begin at is, as well as, I don't think you ever thought that you would be a divorced woman, after coming from a family where your mom left you, and she took your one sister with and left you with your dad. And this absolutely I mean, that was hard. I can't imagine that happening to the point that you actually tried to commit suicide. And you speak about this in the book. Committing suicide and, you know, realizing that, okay, that wasn't my time. There's obviously more for me to go. What leads one to a point? And this, I know, is a triggering thing, because a lot of people watching perhaps are feeling the same way. Like, let me just end it, and then things will be better.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at also in preparation for some of the conversations that I know are going to be popping up, looking at statistics around some things that are kind of addressed in the book and things that I've had to journey through and work through. And there's some scary statistics out there, not just for teens, but for adults as well. And people living with depression, living with anxiety, and trying to function through on a day-to-day basis with those things. And there's an element in my journey that's been so helpful is having other people talk about their anxiety, their depression journeys, their suicide attempts, because it makes me feel less alone. It makes me feel like it's not just you. You're not in this constant isolation. There's actually many others that are navigating through it, and people that I really respect and have, watched over the years, and then sharing their stories has been so important. The reality is there are many people living with depression, and many people believing that they don't have a purpose, that they don't belong on this earth, that they don't belong here, that their voice doesn't matter, that their opinion, their story, their lives don't matter. And that is such a sad fact and reality. And if it means that by sharing some of my journey, my process, what's been hard for me, is helpful to someone else and helps them realize that they do belong, that there is a purpose for them, that's a beautiful thing. And I'm happy to take all the social media flack and the comments and everything that comes with that, because if that means someone's life is being saved, what better honor is there actually?
Yeah, it's true. It didn't end there though, because you speak very recently about when you were going through the divorce, that those thoughts entered your mind again.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you talk yourself out of that? I mean, obviously you've got beautiful children, but then again, people that are stuck in a depression have beautiful lives, and they know it, and they count their blessings, and yet they still can't help feeling that they're not worth it and they should just end it. What made you talk yourself out of that?
Well, in the book, I really explain about the process of learning to live with depression and how I've grown through that process. So at 15, I didn't have therapy available to me. Depression wasn't a conversation at all. Mental health wasn't a conversation at all. And I didn't know where to go with these big feelings that I was having. Where I'm 36 years old now, I have learned over the years through therapy, through conversations around mental health, and the fact that it is a conversation now, I think is so incredibly important. I mean, we've got sports stars all over the world sharing their mental health challenges and how they navigated and how they had to pull out. I mean, Simone Biles pulling out of the Olympics and out of massive competitions because they actually just believe that they need to take a step back. And so I think it's been important for me to share the fact that those don't always just go away. Depression is not something that just is here for a season and gone for another season. What's important about a depression journey, I think, and my depression journey, has just being able to learn how to grow through it and how to manage it really well. And that's what I've done. But I was brutally honest about some of the feelings that I had in this process. And then I went and actually asked a few lawyer friends that are kind of work in that sector, how often is that a reality for women that are navigating through massive changes in their life, through a divorce, through a family change, through a loss of a family member? How often do they actually physically survive it? And again, statistics are crazy in South Africa for those things. And is it a conversation anywhere else? Not that I know of. Not that I know of. And so that's why I think these conversations are really important things to be brought to the table and to be sharing and to be creating a conversation about.
You're brutally honest about a lot of things. And again, I kind of turned the page and I moved forward from the suicide, and I really stuck there for a while. And then I moved like just a couple of pages forward, and then you talk about rape. And you very brutally honest in this book, which is really, I'm very proud of you for doing this, because I'm not sure many people would want to go here. You know, there were experiences in 2 relationships, I'm now reading from the book, in my younger years, that I carried in silence, buried under the false belief that being in an intimate relationship excused what I now understand to be inexcusable. For a long time, I held the hurt and the shame that if they were my own to beat, I lived in the quiet aftermath of these experiences, unaware that the weight I was carrying didn't belong to me. It took time to understand that rape is not an accident of circumstance, and that my resistance on each occasion was a truth that didn't need to be any louder to be valid. And this happened twice, which you didn't report. You didn't think. I mean, again, I go back to the times that perhaps we were living in where, you know, you doubted, maybe it was my fault, maybe it was me. You know, depression isn't real. It's me, it's me, it's me. But you've come to the realization that these are not, it's not you. And I don't know if you want to talk about this.
Yes.
Tough conversation.
I think it is. It is a tough conversation and a necessary conversation because, again, reality in South Africa and gender-based violence rates in South Africa are astronomical. And I speak about in the book when I actually realized what had happened to me was in the conversations that I was having in the work that I was doing in the gender-based violence sector, in the nonprofit sector. And with women, I was actually sitting in a room, in a circle, in a workshop with women who were all currently in a safe house and kind of speaking about their experiences and what they had journeyed through. And just listening to their experiences and when it happened, I realized, like, I'm not excluded from this conversation, actually. My story is actually not different. But I kept it to myself. I kind of went through a process and, you know, again, back to therapy and just safe spaces where I could kind of start unpacking it and thinking about it. And to be honest, was very reluctant to even put it in the book. And I haven't spoken about it publicly at all.
I know. Not even to friends.
No. Yeah. Not even to friends, to family. I had to have conversations with everybody before the book came out and just say, hey, I'm sharing this thing. This is what happened. This is what I went through. And I was so afraid to talk about it. I was so afraid to talk about it. But again, the only reason why I feel free to is because someone else has. And that is the whole point of this journey, is to talk about things that I believe are important topics to be had, especially in South African context, especially for women. And gender-based violence is absolutely one of those topics.
Very real. And that's something that I'm glad you talked to, because this isn't something that happens to someone else. This happens to people that are so close to you that you don't even know what they're going through. So, okay, it's sounding like there's only devastation in this book, and there really isn't, because I love how you speak to yours and Sia's relationship, because it's not all bad. My goodness, you guys were beautiful, you know, and you both have your lives right ahead of you. You're so young and there's so much more, but you guys were symbols, and you still still are, because that did happen, and South Africa saw that, and we saw that, you know, we can move ahead as a country and be together, whether you're black and white or whatever, but love can conquer. And you were there, you supported him, you lifted him, and no doubt he did the same for you in the moments that, you know, you had privately, and you loved each other, and that was beautiful. So I love that you speak to the good times as well, because that's life, isn't it? Ups and downs and ups, and you love someone not knowing you're going to divorce them.
100%, and we had beautiful memories and beautiful things that deserve to be, yes, beautiful children that deserve to be celebrated. And the reality is, I'm a mom navigating something that is massively challenging in the public eye, and my number one priority is to protect my children. And just because a divorce happens and a marriage breaks up doesn't mean that a family needs to entirely. And so we are doing our very best to create a really healthy environment for all of our family members, and that's a really important thing.
It is. It's amazing. It's like you're almost trying to heal the heartbreak of the whole of South Africa while you're healing yourself. It's ridiculous, but it's what happens when you have such a beautiful and public relationship. I want to speak to something as well, which for me is so important: financial independence. Because this is the one thing, and I know that from an interview you did with Anele, this is what really came out. And I don't want to focus on those comments of what was said after that, but to the reality that it really resonated with me, because I've always been independent. It's something that I pride myself in, is that, you know what, I buy what I want to buy. I don't have to ask my husband doesn't even know. In fact, I'll buy something and I'll hide it away so that he doesn't have to see it. And then suddenly, when that independence is taken away from you, and now you're accountable to somebody else for every cent you spend, that financial independence as a woman is probably one of the most important aspects of us, and that will allow us to have that identity. And I love that you speak to that, because a woman loses her identity the moment she is dependent wholly on someone else. Yeah. I don't know if you want to sort of go there for a bit.
Gladly, and I think I just want to start off by saying context is really important.
So important.
And I just believe that, unfortunately, and this is the reason why my documentary is not being streamed, is because I believe with social media and people just trying to get through things really quickly,
and
things are just
clips.
grabbed. Things are just grabbed and it's taken out of context, and very few people, unfortunately, go to look for the context. And I just think in the greater scheme of things that is a reality, and that's happening often. So we'll just pin that over there.
Yeah.
Financial independence for a woman, whether it's me, you, or anybody else, I think is incredibly important. Do I believe that it needs to be a conversation? 100%, I believe it does. And so I think that it's great that it did start becoming a conversation on different platforms, and it did raise a couple of things. Again, the reality is, for women who are staying in abusive relationships, the majority of them are staying because they do not have financial independence. And part of the roadshow, the documentary roadshow, the Falling Forward roadshow that I'm doing, is really highlighting a number of small woman-owned businesses at the documentary screenings. So we've got almost 200 plus small woman-owned businesses at all of the documentary screenings, creating almost a market experience outside, so people are able to go and support them. And just if you have a conversation with a woman who's owning a small business, the challenges that they have are extraordinary. And so it's really important for me to create as much space and conversation for women to be as economically empowered as possible, not just if they find themselves in challenging relationships that they need to get out of, but I just think it's better for the world at a global level if women are financially empowered. And again, the statistics tell a story. And so, moving into the next season of philanthropy and what I'm going to be doing, it really is going to have a massive focus on women and survivors of gender-based violence.
Rachel, I'm so looking forward to your continuing of your story. It's been a beautiful beginning. It's had its ups and downs, we know that, but all of our stories do. But you've been brave enough to talk about them and help women realize that it's not normal. Speak about it and heal. Move forward. Fall forward. That's it's a movement. Clearly, I'm loving it for you, Rachel Kolisi. Falling Forward. The book is out. It came out last week. You can see the notes I've written here. So it's well worth reading, and it's something incredibly special. And I think that all of us can take a page out of this book and learn a lot from Rachel. Thank you. Thank you for coming in, and good luck with this journey. Can't wait to see where it takes you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.